Hello Cloud Pedagogians, welcome back to the course. In today's session, we will be understanding few more concepts about Amazon S3. If you are ready, let's dive into. First, we'll see encryption in S3. Amazon S3 reinforces encryption in transit, means like as it travels to and from Amazon S3 and at rest. So to protect data at rest, you can use server-side encryption or client-side encryption. The server-side encryption allows Amazon S3 to encrypt your object before saving it on disk in its data centers and then decrypts it when you download the objects. In client-side encryption, it encrypts your data client-side and upload the encrypted data to Amazon S3. In this case, you manage the encryption process, the encryption keys and all related tools. To encrypt in transit, you can use client-side encryption or secure socket layer SSL. Now we'll see how the versioning happens to preserve objects. As you know, Amazon S3 identify objects in part by using the object name. For example, when you upload a student photo to S3, you may name the object student.jpg and store it in a folder called students. If you don't use Amazon S3 versioning, anytime you upload an object called student.jpg to the students folder, it overwrites the original file. This can be an issue for several reasons. Student.jpg is a common name for an student photo object. You or someone else who has access to that bucket might not have intended to overwrite it, and now that you have, you no longer have access to the original file. You may want to preserve different versions of student.jpg. Without versioning, if you wanted to create a new version of student.jpg, you would need to upload the object and choose a different name for it. Having several objects all with slight differences in naming variations may cause confusion and clutter in your bucket. So what do? You use S3 versioning. Versioning enables you to keep multiple versions of a single object in the same bucket. This allows you to preserve old versions of an object without having to use different naming constructs in case you need to recover from accidental deletion, accidental overrides, or even application failures. Let's see how this works. If you enable versioning for a bucket, Amazon S3 automatically generates a unique version ID for the object being stored. In one bucket, for example, you can have two objects with the same key but different version ID, such as studentphoto.gif with version 111 and studentphoto.gif with version 1212. Versioning enabled buckets let you recover objects from accidental deletion or overwrite. Deleting an object does not remove the object permanently. Instead, Amazon S3 puts a marker on the object that shows you tried to delete it. If you want to restore the object, you can remove this marker and it reinstates the object. If you overwrite an object, it results in a new object version in the bucket. You still have access to previous versions of the object too. Then you might be wondering how AWS makes sure the versioning states. Buckets can be in one of three states: unversioned state, versioning enabled, versioning suspended. Unversioned or default ones. No new or existing objects in the bucket have a version. Versioning enabled enables versioning for all objects in the bucket. Versioning suspended, this suspends versioning for new objects. All new objects in the bucket will not have a version. However, all existing objects keep their object versions. The versioning state applies to all of the objects in that bucket. Keep in mind that the storage costs are incurred for all objects in your bucket and all versions of those objects too. So, to reduce your S3 bill, you may want to delete previous versions of your objects that are no longer in use. Next, we will see what are Amazon S3 storage classes. When you upload an object to Amazon S3 and you don't specify the storage class, you are uploading it to the default storage class, often referred to as standard storage. When you learned about Amazon S3 in previous sessions, you were learning about the standard storage class without even knowing it. S3 storage classes let you change your storage tier as your data characteristics change. For example, if you are now accessing your old photos infrequently, you may want to change the storage class of those photos or stored in to save the cost on it. As of now, there are 6 S3 storage classes out there. Amazon S3 Standard. This is considered general purpose storage for cloud applications, dynamic websites, content distribution, mobile and gaming applications, and big data analytics. The second one, Amazon S3 Intelligent Tiering. This tier is useful if your data has unknown or changing access patterns. S3 Intelligent Tiering stores objects in 2 tiers, a frequent access tier and an infrequent tier access. Amazon S3 monitors access patterns of your data and automatically moves your data to the most cost-effective storage tier based on frequency of your access. The third one, Amazon S3 Standard Infrequent Access, which is S3 Standard IA. S3 Standard IA is for data that is accessed less frequently but requires rapid access when needed. This storage offers the high durability, high throughput and low latency of S3 Standard with a low power GB storage price and per GB retrieval fee. This is ideal if you want to store long-term backups, disaster recovery files and so on. The fourth type is Amazon S3 One Zone Infrequent Access, which is One Zone IA. Unlike other S3 storage classes which store data in a minimum of 3 availability zones, S3 One Zone IA stores data in a single AZ and costs 20% less than S3 Standard IA. S3 One Zone IA is ideal for customers who want a lower cost option for infrequently accessed data but do not require the availability and resilience of S3 Standard or S3 Standard IA. It's a good choice for storing secondary backup copies of on-premises data or easily recreatable data. The fifth one is Amazon S3 Glacier. S3 Glacier is a secure, durable and low-cost storage class for data archiving. You can reliably store any amount of data at costs that are competitive with or cheaper than on-premises solutions. S3 Glacier provides 3 retrieval options that range from a few minutes to hours. The last one, Amazon S3 Glacier Deep Archive. S3 Glacier Deep Archive is Amazon S3's lowest cost storage class and supports long-term retention and digital preservation for data that may be accessed once or twice in a year. It is designed for customers, particularly those in highly regulated industries such as the financial services, healthcare, and public sectors that retain data sets for 7 to 10 years or longer to meet regulatory compliance requirements. Finally, we'll understand automate tier transactions with object lifecycle management. If you keep manually changing your objects, such as your student photos, from storage tier to storage tier, you may want to look into automating this process using a lifecycle policy. When you define a lifecycle policy configuration for an object or group of objects, you can choose to automate 2 actions, transition and expiration actions. Transition actions are used to define when you should transition your objects to another storage class. Expiration actions define when objects expire and should be permanently deleted. For example, you might choose to transition objects to S3 Standard IA storage class 30 days after you created them, or archive objects to the S3 Glacier storage class 1 year after creating them. Now we'll see the use cases that are good candidates for lifecycle management. Periodic logs. If you upload periodic logs to a bucket, your application might need them for a week or a month. After that, you might want to delete them. Data that changes in access frequency. Some documents are frequently accessed for a limited period of time. After that, they are infrequently accessed. At some point, you might not need real-time access to them, but your organization or regulations might require you to archive them for a specific period. After that, you can delete them. Alright, we have covered almost all the topics that are basics in Amazon S3. I hope it's not too long before we see again in my next video. Until then, take care.